I'm back! Today we are picking up right where we left off with some more hand embroidery. Purely by coincidence, since I filmed that previous video, I happen to have learned a fair bit already of new things and mistakes and things I may have said. Let me talk about some things. This is a plastic canvas. Cross stitch is among the stitches you can use on a plastic canvas, but they are not in any way inherent to cross stitch. This is not the cross stitch base. I have no idea where I got that idea. So that would be why using cross stitches in certain areas was so troubling for me. So today we will be trying some more cross stitch on actual fabric canvas, and I think it's gonna go better. And then for our needle point, what I said about the eyes and the mouth being what I considered like a default stitch, there are all kinds of stitches that you can use that people do commonly use. That's among them. And all of the different kinds of stitches, the different lengths, things like that, they just add different texture. I happen to have learned several new kind of interesting stitches and some cool ideas for ways that you can make it a little more interesting using actual fabric that you stitch onto your canvas, using buttons, using beads, sequins. There's all kinds of cool stuff you can do. For this inspiration, I have to give a shout out to Mindful Makers, which is where I was exposed to some of this cool stuff. Teach a lot of this stuff to kids, get them started crafting young. I'm gonna link to Mindful Makers down below. So I'm excited to try some more hand embroidery. I'm gonna try some of these new techniques, and I think we're gonna come up with some even cooler stuff this video. Let's go. So the design I picked for our embroidery today was a fire flower, and we're going to be using the Cricut to cut out all of the felt we need. Now I also wanted to practice having some script on the canvas, so I looked at some royalty-free fonts that can be used because, quite frankly, my handwriting is not good enough to just write in cursive directly on the fabric myself. So this place is really cool. You can type in exactly what text you want it to say so that it'll show the preview as the phrase you're going to use. And then I literally just traced from there onto my canvas, twisting the angle of it as necessary to get it in the orientation I wanted, ready to be stitched. That looks pretty good. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna pin it in place so that hopefully it won't move around too much while we're working. So just that many I feel like should be enough. We've got all the colors we're gonna need here and our needles. And the cool thing about using felt pieces like this is that we make a whole image on our canvas, and this actually shouldn't take us too long to do because we just need to stitch around the edges as opposed to doing all of it by hand, filling in every piece. So one of the first things that I questioned in my last video was if I needed to have my thread doubled over all the way. And so one of the things that I have now learned is no, with the exception of a few specific stitches that do need it doubled over, typically you wouldn't. You would just overlap long enough to be able to kind of hold it so that you don't lose your thread off your needle, and then you just work with a single strand as you go. We're going to try a few different interesting stitches here today because that's the biggest thing I need to test out next, and I'm going to start off doing my border with what is called a blanket stitch. Probably just shouldn't start randomly at the edge like this. Now we're going to go over and then come up back here. Lovely. And then for my next stitch, I'm going to hoop through. Maybe I shouldn't have pulled this all the way taut. There we go. We're gonna loop through and around. And we're gonna keep going like that. I'll try really hard to keep that distance of how far back I'm going and how far over I'm going. We'll try and keep that nice and constant. And I think this is right. And I think this looks right. So that's all that matters. And once again, if it turns out this isn't exactly right, well, it still looks cool and I still like it, so. What else can you ask for? All right. Oh, let me just fix the eyes there. And we don't need this one anymore. That looks so good. I like the blanket stitch. I think it's really charming. So yeah, I mean, if you'd like a look up close, there's definitely some spots where it looks a little bit cleaner than others. There's pretty nice, a little bit of a blip maybe. Down there is looking pretty good. Bit of white in some areas. So that's part of what practice achieves for you, and learning that kind of balance of how taut you want to pull it so it looks nice and clean, but it doesn't really start to bend. Like I think maybe where you've got a bit of a wiggle here is because I over pulled, or maybe I under pulled. But again, it's that thread tension kind of thing you're looking at. But nonetheless, I like it a lot. And this is what I want to do for my whole outline. Now we just need to do red. You know, again, those stitches aren't quite perfect either. You still got some gaps here and there. I wasn't gonna get magically better at this process in the seconds I took between these two different colors, but I really like this. And I gotta say, looking at it now, I was doing my best to color match, and I think having the slightly darker color than the felt to really accentuate it, make it pop, that's the way to go. That's gorgeous. And if I were to do this again, I would actually pick a slightly darker red to continue that same look. That being said, for these inner layers, I'm actually thinking I will go more color matchy, a little bit more subtle, more of an invisible stitch. I wanted this as a border, but the insides, this is just going to be a matter of getting the felt stitched to the canvas. So I want to keep this about as simple as it gets, and we're just going to do a nice little running stitch all along the edge. Only thing to keep in mind is just trying to keep, again, these stitches as even as possible. Beautiful. I am loving this layering look. I think it looks so cool, the little bit of depth you get. And yeah, just really neat. You can do this kind of thing with just one layer of felt, but I think it's really cool when you stack them like this. So I'm liking that so far. And while I've got white still attached here, I'm gonna go ahead and pop the eyes back on there and do the little stitch we'll need through the white. Perfect. And so here we go. I think just, all we can really hope for here will be kind of one stitch through each eye. Oh, it's so cute. So yes, we'll do just a couple little loops through here so we can hold those bits in place. And then I'm just planning to do the script up here in black as well. Nothing fancy, no gradient of color, maybe someday, but for now we're just gonna keep it simple. And then I'm gonna go straight up and out up here. So my plan for my little piece of script up here is just to do simple backstitching the same way that I did the outline for Tokunaga in my previous video. So that means that every time I'm going to come up, and then back to where that one just came out, so that it makes this nice, continuous, unbroken line. And I'm just going to be doing small enough stitches that hopefully I will be able to handle every little curve in these letters without it looking clunky. So we have got a lot done here. There's just a couple more things to go to really just bump it up to that next level. So for starters, in our reference image, we had a little bit more detail on the leaves here. So we're going to start by adding that. And so we need to get our green thread back out again. I'm just going to use the slightly darker green once more. And this time what I'm going to try is called a satin stitch. Ooh, there we go. So it's just going to be that single loop of thread. And we'll see how this looks. The idea is just to make many stitches, kind of like what I did in the previous video filling in Tokunaga's whole face. That might have been considered a satin stitch, not entirely sure, but just tons and tons of stitches all like side by side, really close together. And it should look lovely and got a little bit of a sheen to it maybe in the end. So let's see how this goes. Okay, so it's tricky. It's tricky getting the right shape and getting in and out so close together and exactly the same height. And I kind of expected to like the satin stitch least because it seemed like it would be this hard. But I think it gave the effect I wanted. I think it's going to look good as the leaves here. So now we just got to do the other side. Not quite symmetrical. I feel like this should be a little bit longer, but I've already tapered it too much to keep stretching it. Maybe just one or two more. Alright, that'll be good. Pretty cute, eh? So now they are proper leaves. Everything is stitched on. We have used our satin stitch, our blanket stitch, our running stitch, our back stitch. And there's just one more type of embroidery stitch that I wanted to try out today. Okay, so the very last stitch we want to try is just going to be a bit decorative around the edges here. I've got some orange prepared for this, and what we're trying here is the French knot, which I've heard is one of the trickier ones. I actually looked up instructions specifically on how to do this one, which I don't always do. And so I think this is what I learned. You come through the canvas, and then before going back through, you wrap the thread around your needle once or twice.
And then you go back through the canvas very close to where you came out. And it just pulled through. Okay. Let's try that again. Because then you see it's got the loop, but then the loop is the next. Might need to look this one up again. Could you? Yeah, I'm gonna need a guide again. I'll be right back. Okay, I watched some videos this time. Let's see if I learned anything. So I feel like part of the problems come through. So right off the bat, I should be looping down like nice and close to the canvas so that my knot's like held right there. And then I have to keep tension of this knot like fairly tight on my needle. So I'll hold it. Oh, but I already pulled my needle through. Okay. That's a little knot. There's a little knot. Well, gee whiz, does that just work now? Lovely. Okay, so yeah, the point was I was gonna do this in orange, maybe red and yellow as well. And it's supposed to be like the fireballs shooting out of the fire flower, right? It's cool, it's cool. Now I have to decide if I want to do all three colors or just the orange, but at least I know how to do it. Hey, I think this worked exactly as I wanted. I think they do resemble the fireballs, so it's thematic. I think it looks cute just having that kind of polka dot look to it. I am really quite taken with this. This turned out super good. All right, so that's that. We tried a bunch of stitches. They all went quite well. We used the felt. It looked fantastic. So, time to do some cross stitch. Hans helped. For our cross stitch design, I opted to go with this image of Surfing Pikachu from the intro of Pokemon Yellow. I think it's an adorable scene. I love Pikachu. I think it's going to translate well. So what I did was, the plan is to go pixel for pixel. Every pixel is a stitch. And the only problem is that counting out specifically from the image, it was a little tricky to tell. So I translated over to a pixel art program. This is just a free web-based one called Dino Pixel. And I drew it pixel for pixel onto this canvas just so that it would be a little bit easier for me to count how many pixels are in a row in certain areas, things like that. And as you can see, I did have to make a couple changes here and there, and that was because it is tricky to count. So it was good to have practiced and gotten it on just a little bit more precise reference to follow before I actually switch over to canvas. Alright, I'm starting with this little pixel here, and I think I'm in the right spot, and if I'm not, then we're just gonna have to move the canvas. Just shuffle the canvas around in the hoop. It's fine. We've got all the power.
Guys, it looks so good. It looks so good. It's taking a very long time. I kind of figured that it would take forever to do this many individual stitches because, yeah, I've only done the outline of the surfboard out of all of this. But it looks so good and I'm so excited. It's Pikachu! I love it! It looks so good! It looks just like Pikachu! Oh, and I finally finished the outline. Okay! So that should be everything. Got his paws, his tail, his ears. Okay. So, I should probably do the cheeks while I've got my image opened. And maybe that little bit of brown. And then I can just sit. I don't need to have my computer open. I can maybe get in a bit more comfortable position. So we'll finish up these. And then keep going. It's taking a really long time. But it is a lovely, soothing practice. I get why people like cross stitch. So if I can get somewhere a bit more comfortable, I will love it too. Okay, we did it. It is all done. Okay, it is all done. And it did take a very long time. I believe all in, when I finished and had to start editing the video, I had about 13 hours of video altogether. Just on this. Just on this tiny. But look at that. Oh, yes. Very much a success. So we did learn some stuff about cross stitch. We learned that it's one of those slow, at your own pace, take your time, soothing sort of hobbies. Fair enough. But it was really cool and it does look really good in the end. This is beautiful art. Love it. And of course the fire flower as well. Excellent turnout on that one. That was a really cool, successful trial at a bunch of different types of skills and methods, and honestly, like, what a success. You know, if I was happy with what came out of the last video, like, I am triply happy about what came out of this one because I am incredibly proud of both of these pieces of work. I hope y'all had a little bit of fun watching me figure this stuff out. Maybe you're inspired to try some yourself. That would be fantastic. If you are interested in seeing the whole cross-stitch process, I do have a time-lapse video of that start to finish available as well. You can find that here. Stay tuned, I suppose, because we will eventually finish the wave pattern on this Pikachu, Surfing Pikachu cross-stitch. It will happen, I was tired, man. Like, I can't keep going yet. I can't keep going right now. I need a break. I need to finish this video and give it to the world, and then, I'll probably post to my Instagram account. We'll have the finished version of this eventually. You can find links to that down below as well. In the meantime, keep crafting and enjoy the rest of your day.